Okay, so time for another casting update. So, HBO have now officially confirmed 6 actors for the HBO Harry Potter series. Woo! Okay, so now we have John Lithgow as Albus Dumbledore, which has been confirmed for a while, and I've already discussed it in a previous video, and I think it's a really good piece of casting. Janet McTeer has been confirmed as Minerva McGonagall, who hadn't previously been confirmed but was strongly rumoured to be playing McGonagall, which again I discussed in depth in a previous video and I think is a solid casting. If you didn't watch my video where I discussed these castings, then go check it out now. Paapa Essiedu, of course, has been cast as Severus Snape, which again I've already covered and obviously has been a highly controversial casting due to the big differences in the character's appearance with Paapa Essiedu. Nick Frost has been confirmed as Hagrid, which again I covered a couple of weeks ago in a different video. Go check that video out if you didn't see it, which I think is an amazing piece of casting and the best decision that they've made so far. Okay, so that is the first 4 pieces of casting which we were already aware of and I've already discussed in previous videos. But we've now got 2 new actors that have joined the HBO Harry Potter gang. The first one is for Argus Filch's character, which is going to be played by none other than Paul Whitehouse. Okay, so when I first saw this casting, I was a bit like, what? I was a bit shocked, to be fair, because Paul Whitehouse is first and foremost a sketch comedian. So it did take me by surprise. Paul Whitehouse is probably best known for his work in The Fast Show in the 1990s, a true British classic of sketch comedy and generally considered highly influential on later sketch comedies like Little Britain and The Catherine Tate Show. He's also well known for his work with Harry Enfield back in the 90s and is generally considered a British comedy legend and probably one of the most influential sketch comedy writers and performers of the last few decades. So, to be fair, when I first saw that he'd been cast as Argus Filch, I was a little bit surprised. But let's break Filch's character down. Filch is a weird, bitter, twisted, creepy old man. But let's be honest, he's not a serious threat. He's a joke. As sinister and nasty as he can be, he never really feels like a significant threat to anyone. He's not respected by any of his fellow staff members, and he's not really feared by the students, to be honest. Maybe like a tiny bit in Harry's first year, but he's more or less a joke character, which is kind of the interesting point, because I think that's where the comedy is with Filch. He's this creepy weirdo who seems to have this sinister desire to torture students, but he's pretty incapable of inflicting pain on anything or anyone. He spends the vast majority of his time chasing Peeves around and being run rings around by the students, and essentially, Filch is a bit pathetic, right? The whole existence of his character is actually hilarious and tragic. He's pretty much the only non-magical person in the entire castle, supposedly tasked with enforcing rules on a bunch of students who all have wands and can perform magic. So essentially, Filch is just jealous of all of the students. He's bitter that he's a squib and he can't do any magic, and that he's surrounded by students that can do magic and probably taunt him about it constantly. So, yeah, I mean, I actually think Paul Whitehouse might actually be really good casting, because he is a master at embodying weird, eccentric characters and portraying them hilariously with little catchphrases and mannerisms. That's actually what Paul Whitehouse was so famous for back in the 90s. He's got the abilities to completely embody Filch's weird, creepy vibe, whilst massively leaning into the comedy of the character. The fact that HBO have chosen a sketch comic to play Filch shows that they're intending on leaning massively into the comedy and ridiculousness of Filch's character, which I actually think makes total sense. As a character, Filch is essentially there for comedic relief, as Filch thinks of himself as a much bigger threat and more important player than he actually is. That's the joke. So I'm not actually sure why I was so surprised at first to see this casting, but I think it's because the Filch that we got in the films was a little bit confusing, to be fair. In the first 2 films, right, we got this creepy, sinister Filch, and then we barely saw him at all in the 3rd film. And then in the 4th and 5th films, when he was used, he was seemingly only used for slapstick laughs, which works really well. But then, after the 5th film, he was barely used again. It was just a bit inconsistent, and overall, Filch did not get nearly enough screen time in the films. Not even close. So I think in the HBO series, if they include Peeves, which they surely will, then this will lend itself perfectly to having a hilarious Filch-Peeves rivalry that provides a consistent source of comic relief in every season. And with that in mind, Paul Whitehouse could actually be the perfect choice to portray the hilariously creepy, eccentric, bitter, pathetic side of Filch's character. Also, I want to be clear here, right? David Bradley's portrayal of Filch in the films was iconic, and he had some of the best one-liners and line delivery of anyone in the entire cast. But due to him being given way too little screen time, Peeves not being part of the films, and the directors changing several times throughout the films, there was a noticeable lack of consistency to Filch's character. Not David Bradley's fault at all, David Bradley is a legend. Also, fun fact about Paul Whitehouse, he was actually in the Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban film in a deleted scene. He played Sir Cadogan, the Mad Knight, who was an iconic character in the book who was sadly cut from the film. Although it never made the final cut, go check it out to see a little taste of Paul Whitehouse embodying an eccentric, quirky character. Now, the second new casting announcement is for Professor Quirrell, who is going to be played by, drumroll please, Luke Thallon. Okay, so in fairness, you would probably be forgiven for not knowing who Luke Thallon is. I don't think he's been in any TV or film at all, with the sole exception of an uncredited role in The Favourite. But he's actually a really big name in theatre circles and is considered a bit of a rising star. He's a classically trained actor, and he's been widely praised for his Hamlet in the West End and for his portrayal of Roman Abramovich in Patriots on Broadway. Now, I think it actually makes sense that HBO have gone with an actor like Luke Thallon for Quirrell. Professor Quirrell is probably the most complex and layered character in the Philosopher's Stone story. He basically spends the entire year pretending to be this stuttering, nervous character purely to throw other people off the scent that it's actually him that's after the Philosopher's Stone. But it's all just an act. As we know, he's actually working on behalf of Voldemort, trying to steal the stone for him. And more than that, Voldemort is sharing his body with him and sticking out of the back of his head. So Quirrell has got all sorts going on in this year. He's playing this nice nervous guy character to everyone, but in actual fact, he's making attempts to try and steal the stone and even kill Harry. And he's doing this partly because he did, I suppose, initially actually want to help Voldemort, but also because he's now completely terrified of Voldemort. On top of all of this, Snape is onto him throughout the year and trying to stop him doing what he's doing. So that is a seriously deep and layered role, so it makes perfect sense to go for a dramatic, serious actor like Luke Thallon. After all, Ian Hart was exactly that. Ian Hart was a serious actor known for playing intense, complex roles, which is why he did Quirrell so well in the first Harry Potter film. And I think Luke Thallon will smash it also. There is a bit of disparity between the two actors though, in the sense that at the time of the first Harry Potter film, Ian Hart was already an established film and TV actor, and way more well known at the time than Luke Thallon is now. But in fairness, they were at different stages of their career. At the time of playing Quirrell, Ian Hart was 37 years old, whereas Luke Thallon will be 29 at the time of filming the first season of the HBO series. Also, fun fact, right? Luke Thallon's birthday was actually on Monday, the 14th of April, which is the same day that HBO made the casting announcement. That is some birthday present. Anyway, yeah, so I think Luke Thallon's age is actually way more appropriate for the character of Quirrell than Ian Hart's was. Quirrell would probably have been in his mid-20s during the Philosopher's Stone year. So yeah, how exciting is that? We've now got 6 confirmed castings. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, drop it a like and subscribe to the channel for more.